No more covering scars. You are welcome. Holy welcome. You are welcome here. Just the way you want to be. Bring your deepest hopes and all your wildest dreams. You are welcome. Holy welcome. Holy welcome. You are welcome here, just the way you are. No more hiding tears, no more covering scars. You are welcome. Holy welcome. You are welcome here, just the way you want to be. Bring your deepest hopes and all your wildest dreams. You are welcome. Holy welcome. Holy welcome. There's something in the air, the dream of life in love, with minds that rest in prayer, sparking joy we're in awe. No matter where your path has been or time will somehow flies, like souls will come home again, true friendship ever thrives. Is this where the magic happens? Can you feel the farce revealed right now in you and me? The secret is wherever we are. There's something in a smile that can turn a day around. Moments so worthwhile when we find common ground. No matter what the day might bring, right here we can align, knowing that we will be seen as perfect, whole, divine. This is where the magic happens. Let's feel all the hearts, from close to me and me to you. The secret is wherever we are. So meet me where the magic happens, feeling all the hearts ignited now in you and me. The secret is wherever. The secret is whenever. The secret is together we are.
Good morning. Welcome to Where the Magic Happens. We are so happy you are joining us here on this beautiful Sunday, hot Sunday in St. George. I'm wondering what the weather's like wherever y'all are. I am so delighted to be here and welcome you to an open, loving, and inclusive community that supports thinking creatively and living a deeply spiritual life here at Center for Spiritual Living St. George. I would love to introduce you to our team for today. Mr. Christopher is behind the scenes, running all the technology to make this happen today. I'm your host, Marina Anderson. I think I hadn't introduced myself yet. And our music is provided today by Alan Stanley. And the invocation and reading will be shared with us from Bill Smith. Bill and Christopher are two of our practitioners. And our message, of course, is from Senior Minister Reverend Joe Kovach today. I'm really looking forward to this theme. This really speaks to kind of what's going on in my life about how to walk differently in the world. And I started reading the book, The Dance by Oriah Mountain Dancer. I think some of you may have heard of her, and she talks about wanting to hear the stories that we want our children's children to remember, and the struggle and the work in loving the world rather than wanting to change it. So I'm just really excited to hear what Chris and Bill and Alan and Reverend Joe have to say about that subject. And I would now like to introduce Mr. Alan Stanley, who has our first song for us, which will include wrapped around our invocation. So welcome,
Yes.
Alan.
Hey, thanks, Marina. Thank you. Hello, everybody. We'll sing this tune, and then Bill will offer our invocation, and we'll come back and sing it some more. This is a beautiful little meditative song. I love it. A friend of mine in Tennessee wrote this song, and she was gracious enough to let me sing it for you. So sing along, too, if you like. In the silence of this moment, there's a holy presence here. In the silence of this moment, Spirit whispers in my ear. In the silence of this moment, my search for hope is done. In the silence of this moment, God and I are one.
Good morning, St. George. I invite you to join me in prayer. As we open the service today, I know that we are in the presence of the one kind, caring, loving God that forms and lives all of our lives. And I know that this God is alive and well and working within me. And as we are all one, everyone within the sound of my voice right now is also in that same kind and protective life of God. I know that today's service, as we discuss the wise warrior, I know that it will be insightful for all of us. I know that new visions will appear for all that are attentive, and I know that the kind guiding hand of God moves us all through this in a way that allows us all to comprehend and get the most out of today's talk and music as possible. I am so grateful for this knowing, grateful for the crew that is putting on this service today, grateful for all the members that are tuning in and in our congregation. I just release my word to the law of God, knowing it is already done, and so it is. Amen.
So it is. Thank you. In the silence of this moment, there's a holy presence near. In the silence of this moment, Spirit whispers in my ear. In the silence of this moment, my search for hope is done. In the silence of this moment, God and I are one. In the silence of this moment, my search for hope is done. In the silence of this moment, God and I are one. God and I are one. So it is. I'd like to welcome Bill back to offer our reading today.
Thanks, Alan. Didn't realize how crooked my glasses were until I got on the screen. I chose for today's reading from Deepak Chopra from his book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And I thought this was appropriate for how we're talking about the wise warrior. And in this book, he talks about a number of different, actually 7 spiritual laws. And the 4th spiritual law of success is the law of least effort. This law is based on the fact that nature's intelligence functions with effortless ease and abandoned carefreeness. This is the principle of least action, of no resistance. This is, therefore, the principle of harmony and love. When we learn this lesson from nature, we easily fulfill our desires. If you observe nature at work, you will see that least effort is expended. Grass doesn't try to grow, it just grows. Fish don't try to swim, they just swim. Flowers don't try to bloom, they bloom. Birds don't try to fly, they fly. This is their intrinsic nature. The earth doesn't try to spin on its own axis. It is the nature of the earth to spin with dizzying speed and to hurtle through space. It is the nature of babies to be in bliss. It is the nature of the sun to shine. And it is the nature of the stars to glitter and sparkle. And it is human nature to make our dreams manifest into physical form, easily and effortlessly. In Vedic science, the age-old philosophy of India, this principle is known as the principle of economy of effort, or do less and accomplish more. Ultimately, you come to the state where you do nothing and accomplish everything. This means that there is just a faint idea, and then the manifestation of the idea comes about effortlessly. What is commonly called a miracle is actually an expression of the law of least effort. Nature's intelligence functions effortlessly, frictionlessly, spontaneously. It is nonlinear. It is intuitive, holistic, and nourishing. And when you are in harmony with nature, you are established in the knowledge of your true self. You can make use of the law of least effort. Least effort is expended when your actions are motivated by love, because nature is held together by the energy of love. When you seek power and control over other people, you simply waste energy. When you seek money or power for the sake of the ego, you spend energy chasing the illusion of happiness instead of enjoying happiness in the moment. When you seek money for personal gain only, you cut off the flow of energy to yourself and interfere with the expression of nature's intelligence. But when your actions are motivated by love, there is no waste of energy. When your actions are motivated by love, your energy multiplies and accumulates, and the surplus energy you gather and enjoy can be channeled to create anything that you want. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Bill. So I'm going to step out a little bit with an Eddie Watkins song today. Kind of rockabilly it up a little bit. If you ever heard it before, but please sing along. All is well. Well, I'm not worried about tomorrow. Today I declare freedom from yesterday's mistakes of the past. Hey, all things are made brand new. Hey, don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should? I can change my reality by changing my mind. Perfect peace, joy, and happiness is yours and it's mine. I am loved and so are you. Hey, don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should? All is well. All is well. Divine Spirit is directing me right now. All is well. All is well. All is well. And unfolding as it should. I am clothed in the Spirit. I am fed by the divine. I am one with all that is. My soul is free from time. I am blessed and so are you. Hey, don't it feel good to know that all is well and unfolding as it should? Hey, all is well. All is well. Divine Spirit is directing me right now. All is well. All is well. All is well, and unfolding for the good. All is well, all is well. Divine Spirit is directing us right now. All is well, all is well. All is well, and unfolding for the good. All is well, and unfolding for the good.
Thank you, Alan. Not really.
All is well.
That all is well and unfolding as it should. Yeah, very good. Thank you so much. As Bill and I have mentioned already, today's talk title is The Wise Warrior, and all that within the global themes of living out loud and speaking truth to circumstance. I'm really looking forward to what Reverend Joe has to tell us today. Bring him on in.
Hey, good morning, Marina.
Joe, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Let's see where we go from here.
All right.
All is well. It's a great song. All is well. I hope that you find yourself well, my beloved community. Happy Sunday. Getting towards the end of July. In this area where we live, it's hot. And It's so funny because growing up in Buffalo, it was the opposite. We complained about 6 months of winter in Las Vegas, and in this hot area, we complained about 6 months of summer. So at least these 3 months of heat. And yet, all is well if we choose to. I do want to start out with some thanks. Our guest speaker last week was practitioner Eugene Holden, speaking about Shiva and Kali and illusions, which again fits right in hand with dealing with circumstances and the truth of those. And watching his talk, couple reminders for me was that we are love, and he asked what would love do here, and that every opportunity is an opportunity to love. So Eugene, thank you very much for filling in. He's been doing that, speaking with our community for long before I started. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you missed it, please go back and take a look. And so we're talking about the wise warrior, and man, this I could probably talk again as usual about a couple hours on this topic. And so many ways to think about this, but let's ground ourselves first. A couple of weeks ago when I last talked, I shared a quote, and I want to remind us, from Plotinus, who says, "I do not argue, I contemplate. And as I contemplate, I let fall the seeds of thought into the mirror of mind, which then becomes the mirror of matter." So just to remember what we're talking about here, circumstances is what we hold in our mind, is what shows up on the outside. And if we're not liking what shows up in matter, as in physical matter, in the circumstances of our life, then, we thinking about that stuff or arguing about that is not going to change it. It just holds it even firmer in place. It's thinking about what we want instead. And so let's think about for a moment this term, wise warrior. Let that sit for a moment and ask yourself, what does that mean? Contemplate it for a minute. Wise warrior. It kind of seems maybe at first like it's a couple opposites, wise and warrior. I looked up the definition of warrior from definition.com, and it says, especially in former times, a brave or experienced soldier or fighter. So that's probably within the range of what we were thinking about. And when I think of term wise warrior, I kind of go back to growing up, I'd watch some of the older martial arts movies, and there was always like a wise master, and who would, in essence, not fight against things, but it was always literally self-defense. And that's kind of, there was always like a number of aha moments of how they thought. But some of us are in a war every single day, it feels like, and that is some of the circumstances of reality that some of us live in. And to simply say, well, there's peace all around us when we feel like we're fighting against everything, it's probably too hard to grasp. It's not, I don't even know if that would be a dream. If it's a dream, but I'm staring at this right now. So I do want to be a realist in the sense of, yes, circumstances are real in the sense, like, we don't pretend my arm's not broken and I'm just going to spiritually love it together. We take action, we get it set. There's support there. And at the same time, all these circumstances that come to us and put us in this place of feeling like we have to fight. Now, when I looked up the definition of fight, again, dictionary.com, it says to take part in a violent struggle involving the exchange of physical blows or the use of weapons. So warriors fight, but they're wise. And it kind of seems still opposite, but we're going to grow this definition by the end of this talk. But I want you to continue to think about, when I say wise warrior, what comes into your mind? For me, I'm going to continue on. It's I think of the word battle, legend, hero, tragedy, death, destruction. It all comes for me. And this is part of a couple of weeks ago, I talked about being hypnotized. This is the unconscious or hypnotized thoughts that we have as a collective human race here on the planet. So in other words, this is what we pick up socially. This is what we're fed through our media, which we spend hours on media, and this is what we hear about. So therefore, we say it is true. So therefore, when we're hypnotized, we're living without the power of our awareness, then we're really acting most often out of the unpeaceful and unwise ways of the warrior. And that's when we tend to find ourselves fighting against, jousting at every opportunity that comes along, and it can be draining. So those are some of the ways I think, and I know you have the ways you think, but I want to share a couple different definitions of warrior, or ideas even of warrior, that may help to begin to open up our minds. The first is from Sitting Bull, the Native American, I was going to say warrior, but chief, who says warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warrior is not someone who fights. The warrior for us is the one who sacrifices themselves for the good of others. Their task is to take care of the elderly, the defenseless, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children, the future of humanity. So, again, we have our go-to hypnotized definition of warrior, but maybe we open that up to a different meaning. Coming from another Native American chief and wise man, Black Elk, who says regarding warriors, the commitment is within your heart and path you walk. Again, the commitment is within your heart and path you walk. A true warrior has confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen and help. Now, there's a lot in that quote right there. And for me, when I read that, that definitely expanded this idea of what I think of a warrior is. Yeah, even now, I say warrior in the image of a modern day soldier comes to mind, with all the gear that they wear and the weaponry. But this idea for them is the wise warrior is then anchored in peace and poise, and that they're focused on what needs to happen without needing to fight, right? They recognize what's going on within themselves and their community, and that's how they serve. And they recognize at the same time, especially from this tradition, is that all is one. It's already whole already. And that what they're doing is when there's something that seems to be unsettled, unbalanced, that they're bringing balance and oneness to that circumstance. Again, a couple of weeks ago, the quote from Ernest Holmes, who says, "One alone in consciousness with the infinite constitutes a complete majority." So as we recognize the truth of who we are, right, that I am one with all that is, that and it is mine to have and mine to use, and I can direct that to serve others. And that is the greatest service that we can have. And so coming from these wise men, Sitting Bull and Black Elk, we kind of take on a different idea of maybe what being a warrior is, and letting loose this idea of fighting against. There are many things that we can look out into the world, again, just turn on the news and find things that we can fight against. And again, I remind us that when there is an out there, that out there is always a reflection of what's going on inside each and every one of us. So how we see things is always a little skewed, right? Depending on our own perception. Like if we go and see a movie, and let's say there's 100 of us watching right now, I'm going to tell you that 100 of us are going to have different opinions on that movie. But the movie is the movie. It just is. And there are circumstances that just are. And we decide what we're going to pull from that. Right. And to start as a reminder, again, Einstein, who says, make sure that we're not trying to solve the problem at the level of consciousness that it was created. Now, at the same time, I'm going to go a little deeper than that, is if we see a problem almost, then we're not seeing things taking place naturally. Things can happen naturally, even if it's unwanted. And what do we know? We know with the power of mind, being wise, being aware, that we have an effect on what shows up. And it's good to remember at the same time, while we're working at changing ourselves and changing life outside of ourselves, that this doesn't happen like that. Even when it all of a sudden it just appears, in a sense, we've been doing a lot of work along the way, right? We've been working on ourselves. We've been paying attention, aware of the thoughts, beliefs, and actions that really don't align anymore with our best and highest good. And only we can determine that. And what's important for us to recognize is every, let's use a fighting term, every win, every battle won, so to speak, is a win for everyone, because we're all connected. We're all part of this whole, particularly on this planet. And as one thrives, that energy goes out and lifts everyone, even if we don't see it. And maybe some of us are still to the point where we don't believe it, and that's okay. One of the most important rules, principles in science of mind that I remind myself is principle is not bound by precedent. I'm going to say that again. Principle, as in the rules of what happens, is not bound by precedent, meaning what happened before it. So often we stop ourselves from achieving great victories in our lives because we're like, oh, well, that has never happened before. I've tried and tried and tried, and it's never happened, so it's never going to happen. And we stop there. But what I know is and believe in is that life is infinite, and it will give us what we are willing and open to receive. So in essence, if it's not showing up, maybe we're just not there yet. And that's okay too, right? Going back to the quote from Plotinus that I started with about, I do not argue, I contemplate. Thomas Troward kind of takes that, who is a New Thought philosopher, speaker, author, and reminds us that the universe also creates by contemplation, by thinking. And because it's one mind and we are that mind. And so when we're tapped into what is going on through societal consciousness, initially what it teaches us is to yell and scream and be a victim. But as we learn our own level of wisdom, then we can feel better. We feel ourselves. We use this wisdom into our experience, and remind ourselves it begins inside, in the heart, not just the mind. We have to use our mind, absolutely, but not just the mind. The heart lets us know energetically whether we're really aligned with it. So again, making war on outer circumstances in the end just empowers those circumstances. And as religious scientists, we know there's only one power, and behind and all that power, and which is behind all circumstances. So therefore, no matter how ugly it seems, how limited it seems, how much we feel in lack, let us remember at whatever level we can to, and Jesus said, faith the size of a mustard seed, which is tiny, tiny, tiny. It will work. Remember that there is a divine presence that is for us. How would I know it's for us? Because there's only one thing happening, and we are that. So why would it not give to, in essence, itself? That's wisdom. And we grow through our own wisdom. As the wise warrior, we take steps and we work on ourselves, and we may say we take action, and then we look at the results, and then we contemplate and take different actions. And in every circumstances, there's opportunity. There's opportunity to look past the initial appearance of what's happening. And yes, it can be hard. Again, watching the news, and we automatically feel like we're forced to pick sides, and we don't have to. And especially when it's some things that are over our heads and we're not understanding, that's okay. This divine mind knows all. All we have to do is be balanced with that, put our faith in alignment with that. And then the wisdom of that consciousness of God, of spirit, is ours to have. So when we come from spirit within, then we recognize the spirit without. And then Bill's reading about things happen naturally, we get to the point when we practice this so much, it is natural that we're automatically aligning ourselves with the nature that we are, the nature of life itself. So author Aman Motwani says, love and compassion, the way we traditionally think about them, will not change the world. Love isn't something you think about. It isn't something you do. It is who you are. So whatever word you use for God, sometimes I use love, sometimes I use life, sometimes I use mind, whatever it is. Let us remember that when we mention love here, we're not talking about Hallmark love or the love of ice cream. We're talking about love, which is the energy and the essence and the power and the presence of God, Spirit, love in our life, in who we are. And so we don't have to strive to be it. We just have to let it come naturally through our own wisdom. That's how we become, in essence, the wise warrior, is we have to recognize that it's already here. It's just something that we're unfolding. Aman wrote a couple of books, and in the second one, he wrote Creating a World That Works for All. He introduces us to the reader to a path and kind of introduces, and it's really an invitation to follow, that there's an intrinsic worth of every person that we encounter. And by recognizing this worth in others, it forms, well, we recognize it in ourselves, and it forms a loving relationship. So a couple of things, I'm going to share them with you. One, he says, focus not on how little time we have, but on how to make the most of what little time we have with every person. So in other words, not looking at the grand, but who's right in front of us. Even if it's for a checkout counter, how can I focus love into that moment? And love is wisdom. By showing someone that we love, we're showing them that we care. We're showing them that we're wise. We're showing them that we recognize who they are. He says, focus not on what you see on the outside of a person, but on the person within. See both the pain and the potential within. And now often it's really easy to get caught up in what someone is not. And that's a fault we all carry. And yet we can change that one meeting, one opportunity at a time. He shares thirdly, he says, focus not on what's wrong with the person, but what makes them right. So it's similar. See their strength and their weakness. So we're not just looking at outside appearances. We're not looking at what they don't bring in the moment or how they're showing up in that moment. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of moments that if somebody judged me as a person in that moment, I wouldn't want them to. But luckily, there's another moment and another moment where we're able to share our current wisdom and recognize sometimes that there's a greater wisdom. Oh, this was working for me now. Okay. And it's no longer working. I can take this bit of wisdom now that I've learned and use it in my life and learn to become the change that we want to see in the world. And that's a quote that most people know is be the change. But I heard a conversation with the grandchildren, and they were saying when he says it was meant to be, when he said be as in become, recognize you are that, be the love, be the light, be wise for someone else. And remember, as wise as we are, there's somebody else who's a little wiser, and there's somebody else who's looking up to us saying, wow, look at that wise warrior. Ernest Holmes says this. He says, what we demonstrate today, tomorrow, and the next day is not as important as the tendency which our thought is taking, the dominant attitude of our mind. If every day things are a little better, a little happier, a little more harmonious, a little more health-giving and joyous, if each day we are expressing more life, we are going in the right direction. So how do I know if this wisdom is working? Are we going in the right direction? Is your life getting better in any way, shape, or form, and consistently? Very wise. It's, the truth to me is always simple. It's always simple, and it's always easy to understand. And so keep in mind, as we take on new things, some are going to work and some aren't. And we can find wisdom in another. We can find wisdom through our own life experiences. But the wise warrior also knows that their power, what they're doing that's creating life, it's not their ego power, right? It's God power. It's oneness. It's wholeness. Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, years back, created 4 stages of consciousness. I'm going to share them with you here. And we start off in this to me, in this victim consciousness, that life is happening to me. And therefore, what can I do? I don't really have any power. I can make a choice, but these are the cards I'm dealt. And this is the wisdom at this level. We're feeling disempowered, stuck. We're in lack. But eventually, and it's always an opportunity for us to learn, we move to what's called, he calls by me consciousness. This is responsibility consciousness, where we recognize and say, oh, it's my thoughts that are co-creating my world. So it's, even if I take somebody else's wisdom, I have to be responsible for how I use it. And that's empowering. At the same time, we're still kind of using quite a bit of ego in that sense. We believe that we are the power, not that we're using the power. And yes, I do believe we are that power, but we're using it from a very limited place. So eventually, through recognizing and serving through our wisdom, we get to through me, which is where we surrender. And not surrender as in give up like a warrior, but like Bill's reading, we surrender to the natural flow of life. This is hard. Now, when I think of the word warrior, yeah, this is work. Paying attention to who I am, how I'm showing up. Sometimes that's a tough pill to swallow. How can I be brave in that moment? How can I be brave and stand up for someone else when I know things are going wrong? In that, it's not just my head that's going to direct me. It's my heart. And that's when I open my heart, I allow this presence and this power through me. And I'm still taking responsibility, okay, but not as a victim. I'm taking responsibility as the cause. Now, the highest level he talks about is as me. And literally, we are recognized, we're what we would call at the Christ conscious level. We are, or even the Buddha level, that we recognize our true oneness, that we literally, for us, there is no difference between who we are and that power and presence. I'm not there yet. I'm working at it. And it's not something that's out there. I'm working at allowing it. It's already there, right? I'm allowing it through me. And this is a battle at times too, because the old hypnotized self wants to keep me down, keep me stuck, because it's so comfortable, Joe. It's so, why do you want to have to work and hard and you don't have to admit to that, because that doesn't feel good when you admit to something you did wrong, and on it goes. So, spiritual warrior. I like that term. And I don't like it in the term, again, in the sense of fighting against, but just recognizing that I have to be brave, as Sitting Bull said, and Black Elk said. I have to be compassionate, right? I can be open to what is while I serve. And it's not even that I have to think about serving, because when I know who I am, when I know what I am naturally serving. Naturally. Raymond Charles Barker, a New Thought author, says, you are in the midst of a power which is saying to you, use me, direct me, express me. I am ready. Are you? Are we ready? Are we ready to stand as a wise warrior, as a spiritual warrior? In essence, I can even think of our practitioners as spiritual warriors, because they're practitioners of truth. They hold truth, and they have to be brave and diligent and compassionate and caring to do so in spite of some circumstances that are presented to us. So again, it can't be something we're just talking about, nor something that we just do and take action about. That there is a balance there, that we must be that power of love and harmony. And as we're being it, we're naturally allowing it to do its good. It's almost like we don't even have to try. Oh, I didn't mean to necessarily smile at that person and make their day. That's just who I am. I allow it through all the time. And again, it can be difficult. I'm going to take a few minutes here to talk about, in a sense, my understanding of battling and being a warrior. Now, early on in life, I was born with a cleft palate. Some might know it as a hair lip. So my nose was flat and crooked, and I had some operations and such. Long story short, I was pretty happy. And then I went to school. And I remember the day that kids kept telling me, oh, why do I look different? And why do I look different? And why do I look different? And it didn't bother me. I was probably kindergarten. And I kept asking my parents, why do they keep saying I look different? Because I would look in the mirror and all I saw was me. I was perfect, whole, and complete. I didn't see any difference. I didn't see any separation. But one day I looked in the mirror and there it was. I held my finger up and I could see that my nose was crooked. And then I saw myself from that moment on for a long time as less than. And I started taking things personally. And I began to fight against and get angry and try to change the circumstances by controlling. Warriors don't control those outside situations. They control themselves. So early on, when I was scared for many reasons, being raised Roman Catholic, my father taught me about Archangel Michael and that he was God's warrior angel, that he was the head of God's army, so to speak, and that he fought Satan or the dark. And as a young kid, I clung to that because here was this warrior with, depending on if you've seen a statue, and there's one behind me there, right there. He also has a shield and a sword, the sword of truth. And I love that. It empowered me. And it wasn't wrong to do so. At the same time, I continued to use that as an excuse unconsciously to fight against all the dark that was in my life. And I continued to fight with my words and then eventually with my fists. And I realized very quickly after doing that wasn't the way for me. But then what else was I supposed to do? Because I was still finding myself in that to me life. I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. Life was happening to me. My cards were dealt. You could try to make the best of it. Now I got through obviously school, and I learned to empower myself, meaning once I learned to love myself enough, and these weren't the words I would have used back then, but it changed, that this was who I am. There was kind of a level of surrendering to who I was. Now, later on, I eventually learned about the law of attraction, which is what helped me go from really being the victim to getting to the by me stage, level 2, where I began to take responsibility that it was my thoughts of being a victim, of being different, that were showing up in my life. And that's what put me on this path of, if anything, of being a spiritual warrior, is to recognize that the more I take responsibility and the more I recognize the power of taking that responsibility, that there is truly nothing I cannot be, do, or have. It's a matter of aligning to what is. And it takes, I went on a journey of education, of learning, practicing, learning, experiencing, and eventually I'm in and out of, I will say, stage 3, which is through me. Most of the time I'm there now, and I've trained myself to be that in spite of what stands in front of me. And it's not easy. And there are times where I have to be courageous. And I share this not as an ego bloat for myself, to let you know that everyone you see in life has a story. Pain is pain. It doesn't matter. My pain is my pain. And so I use that, of course, shockingly, how I ended up becoming a school counselor, right? Which is what I never planned to do. But I've spent my professional life helping students through those situations and being a beacon of light and love and compassion and hope to let them know it will get better. And it's hard to tell like a 12-year-old that it will get better when they're in the middle of a circumstance. And we're not here to wave magic wands and make things better. We do that by sharing truth. We plant seeds and let them grow. This is all part of being a wise and a spiritual warrior. I wanted to share a different perspective that I found actually on Wikipedia. So that was my story, by the way. And I will say, let me finish up by saying it still can be a battle sometimes. And when I recognize that in my head that I'm fighting against, I'm battling something, even if it's within me, those are the most difficult ones that, why do I think this way? And how do I get out of it? And that's an intense personal battle. And it's, well, how do I have this thought, but allow it, but know it's wrong, and so on and so forth. And that's where the education comes in, and the help and calling up a practitioner, for example, can help us get by those and learn the right wisdom for us, the right truth. Because truth is truth. Truth is always true. So there's a guy I learned about, and I hope to say his name right, Chogyam Trungpa. And he teaches a way called the spiritual warrior. And he wrote that book called The Sacred Path of the Warrior. His life was very interesting, but I will say this quote was very helpful. He says, warriorship here does not refer to making war on others. Aggression is the source of our problems, not the solution. Here, the word warrior is taken from the Tibetan Pao, which literally means one who is brave. And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with heart that one can see rightly what is essential is invisible to the eye. So in essence, it's about going within and seeing our own divinity, our own truth. And he actually talks about the spiritual warrior. He mentions that term, and it's like an archetype that we can build and use for ourselves. And the spiritual warrior, he says, I love this, he says, is in touch with the joy, the sadness, the expansiveness in heart, and is able to share and give it to others. He says the warrior commits to growing the heart and soul in becoming a creative being. So, wise warrior, yes. Spiritual warrior is that wisdom to me of recognizing that which we call God and truth in everything. Rumi quote of the week: yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Okay. And let me, before we get to that, I'll stay here for a minute. Another example of the idea of us not changing all at once. I just want to remind us of the story of how the bamboo plant grows for years. They're tall, they're 80 feet tall, but for the first 5 to 7 years, they barely grow 2 feet, right? So it's building up the energy, building up the resources, building up its wisdom. And then it doesn't fight, it flows. Right? It doesn't fight and say, in the first 2 years, I should be there. Look at where they are. I should be up there, and I should have this, and I could, no, it just is. And eventually it recognizes who it is, it allows itself to be, and just sprouts 70 to 80 feet in the air. And we have these tools that can assist us to do this on our own. I believe that when we practice principle, when we understand principle literally and educate ourselves and different methods of being, of meditation, of prayer, and so on, that when we use these as tools, eventually, it's kind of slow. I'm not seeing the progress I want to see. And then boom, just like that, it happens and we shoot and our life opens up to the most free and full and expanded life that we could imagine and more than. So this week I have what I'm going to ask of us to apply this is to practice seeing the intrinsic value of everyone that you meet. Intrinsic, meaning, can you see through the circumstances? Can you see through what they're wearing or how they're presenting themselves? Can you see through that and see love, see spirit in action? All right. And if we can't, we're not making ourselves wrong, but let's go within, because then that means, right, if I can't see that on the outside, that means I can't see myself on the inside. So where am I holding back the love of myself that now I can't give it to somebody else? Right? We can't give someone else to someone something we don't have. So again, when we're out, when we're living, right, this is about being love, being the spiritual warrior, bringing love by just being you at your highest and your best. All right. So our affirmation for this week, here's another spiritual tool that we can use. Say it once, read it through. I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit that I am. And now I take a breath in. I ask you to say it with me. With value, with worth, with power. I stand in the power and wholeness of spirit that I am. So let us affirm this perfect life together with prayer. And I affirm that life is perfect for every voice that is hearing me. Because what I know is there's only one life being lived. And at no place is this life, God's life, Spirit's life, the universe unfolding in any way that it shouldn't. It is always changing and adapting and evolving and unfolding perfectly in the universe, in our life, individually. There is nothing that cannot be healed, and there is always love and truth waiting to be revealed in every circumstances. If there's a problem, a circumstance, a challenge, a battle, I release that now to the infinite one mind that already knows the answer. And I simply open myself as a spiritual warrior to allow that wisdom in. What is it that maybe I need? I need to let go of. I need to add more of. I need to recognize, because I know it's right here and right now. And it's okay to ask for help in this moment. If I'm not there yet, I can recognize that I am perfect, whole, and complete, and I am opening to that thought more and more every single day. For I know that life is love and life is happening for my best and everyone's best and highest good, because there's only one life. That is my life. I claim it for myself. I affirm it for everyone else, everyone else. And so it is. Whew.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. That was really great. A couple of things that stood out for me was I really love the Native American quotes that you had, and their definitions of like peaceful warriors, and contemplation, using contemplation, which might just be a pause, right? A breath. It might not be big coming together of, everyone. It just might be, I take a breath, I pause and go, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't keep it simple. Pause, breathe a couple times. Yes. Right.
And I liked the review of the 4 stages of consciousness, and I recognize that I dip into all 4 of them from time to time. And so that it's not something you arrive at, it's something that's always ongoing. So great talk. I had lots of meaning for me, Reverend Joe.
I'm glad. Thank you. And let's hope everybody else joins us in the community talk afterwards, and we can share.
Yes, it will start shortly. So don't forget to chime into that. All right. So I have some announcements for you. So I just want to remind you that if you or somebody has something going on in their life that they would like some support for, whether it's a challenging situation, an emotional situation, or even a celebration of something, and you would like to have some interaction with somebody. We have prayer requests available, and we also have the community care circle, which can do other things like sending cards or visits to folks or whatever. So prayer request, prayer at CSL St. George, stgeorge.org, or the phone number on the screen for the community care circle. So please don't hesitate. There are many who are waiting and wanting to be of service. As Reverend Joe mentioned, in just a few minutes, we'll start our Zoom conversation, and we hope that you'll come on there and share your thoughts and your own stories. And a quick reminder, too, that on August 13th, we have our next in-person service at the Masonic Lodge on Mall Drive. We hope that you'll all come to that. And we have a community service project going with that. Please bring school supplies for our local kids, and we will distribute them through Switchpoint and through Switchpoint Stepping Stones childcare system. So help us help the kids who will be starting school, believe it or not, very soon. So, okay. And you are invited to support this this community of ours in whatever way that you are able. Of course, you're invited to volunteer setting up at in-person services if you'd like. You can email us and let us know you would like to do that. And also financially, if you can help us step into that prosperity, you can give by Zelle, PayPal, or by mail. And all of this information is in your newsletter and also on the website. So check us out and join us. Next week is a treat, of course. All the practitioners will be on board doing the standing stones. And then on August 6th, Reverend Joe is back talking about the awakening to your purpose. Those should both be super great. So we hope you'll continue to join us. All right, Chris is going to bring us all up, and we will share our closing affirmation, and we hope that you will join us at home.
Let me pause for a minute, though, because I almost forgot. We have to celebrate our newest practitioner and let everybody know Sue Fulmer passed her oral panel and is now our newest practitioner. So I hope that everybody comes out to celebrate this when we gather next in person. But Sue spent 4 years, well, in essence, 4 long years for her, and completed her training. And we are very, very proud of her. So definitely have to share that with her. It's a long path of inner work and understanding science of mind and putting it into practice. And so she is a spiritual warrior for sure. So congratulations, Sue.
Yes. So cool. Something wonderful like Sue's accomplishment is happening through me right now.
Oh, did I not bring Ellen in?
Ellen is muted.
No.
It is this thing called life.
There we go.
Life is in my mind, life is in my body, and life is in all that I do.
I am it, and I embrace it, and I share it.
Just the way that it is, and just the way that it is becoming. Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Bye,
on
everybody.
Good week.
Much love. Namaste.